For this portion of making the Cassandra necklace, we are going to be bezeling the SS47 using the Cassandra bezel. And I do have a link of this in the description, so if you want to go through it at a slower pace, go ahead. I will try to pick up the pace a little bit here without going too fast. With that being said, here are the colors we're going to be using. This is for a different one, but the one we're going to be doing today is going to be this one, and it's Swarvoski's Tangerine SS47. We are going to be using for our Levanos Deco galvanized yellow, the Levano Delicas. And then for the first round of 15-0s, instead of using Delicas, I am using a hexagon. You can go ahead and substitute it for Delicas without a problem. And the color I'm using is metallic bronze. And then for the remaining 15-0s, I'll be switching over to the Silverline Rose Copper. And this is a really lovely color, and it worked really well with some of my other colors, and I think it'll work gorgeous with this. And then for the fire polish, I have two colors I'm going to be using. I am going to be using the Sunset Maple, and I also am going to be using AB Siam. So lots of fun colors to work with, so let's go ahead and get started. I suggest using your thread. I would use approximately, I would go ahead and use like one full wingspan from one arm to the other arm, then a half. That should give you more than plenty. It's better to be safe than sorry. And then let's go ahead and put your stop bead about halfway through. And add a total of 28 11-0 Delicas. So let's get a little closer. There we go. And what we're going to be doing is, just like with any basic peyote we're going to start off with, we're going to go ahead and create a little loop. And I'm just going to go through the very first 3 of my 11-0 Delicas. There we go. And we just created our loop. Alright. And just like a typical 11-0 Delica, we're just going to add a bead. We're going to add a bead to the beads that we skip on top and skip every other. So, I'm coming out of this 11-0 Delica. Let me get a little closer. There we go. So I'm coming out of this 11-0 Delica. I'm skipping this one, but I picked up 11-0 Delica that's going to sit on top. And then I'll go through the following 11-0 Delica. Just like this. Okay? There we go. And if things don't line up, go ahead and line them up. There we go. And go ahead and do that all the way around, making sure when you're done, you've threaded that first 11-0 Delica that you just added. Alright, so do that and then meet me back here and we'll go on to the next step. Alright, so I've gone all the way around. So before I start off with my 15-0s, I'm going to go ahead and just shape this. I'm going to just use a basic Sharpie. There we go. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but we just want to get the shape going to make our lives a little bit easier. Alright, so now we're switching over to our 15-0 hexagons or Delicas, depending on what you're using. And I'm coming out of this 11-0 sticky note. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick up a 15-0 hexagon. It's going to sit in this little notch, and I just go through the next sticking out 11-0 Delica. There we go. There. And if things don't sit correctly, go ahead and just lift up gently and reset it by just gently tugging on your thread and go all the way around, and making sure you come out of this 15-0 hexagon that you just added, okay? All right, so go ahead and do that. Meet me back here, and then I'm going to be switching over to my 15-0 rounds. All right, so just like we did last time, the only difference is instead of using the hexagons or the Delicas, we're switching to our 15-0 rounds. So what I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to go all the way around, and I'm going to come out from the 15-0 hexagon sticking out, picking up a 15-0 round and going through the next 15-0 hexagon sticking out. There we go, just like this. And I tend to like to use my fingers to help guide. And ta-da! And then go ahead and do that all the way around, making sure when you're done, you come back and you weave your way through so you're coming out of that first 15-0 that you just added. Whoops. That you go all the way around and make sure when you finish, you're coming out of that first 15-0 that you added. Meet me back here. Take off your stop bead, and let's go ahead and get started on our 15-0 Delicas or hexagons, whatever you're using, and we'll get started on the back. Alright, so now we're ready to get started with our first round in the back of our 15-0s, and I'm using the 15-0 hexagons. You can go ahead and use Delicas if you want. I'm coming out of here. I'm going to pick up a 15-0 hexagon, and then I'm going to go through the next sticking out 11-0 Delica. And I do this all the, so we'll do this about 3/4 of the way, and then at that point we'll go ahead and stick in our stone and then complete going all the way around. So go ahead, do 3/4, meet me back here, and we'll stick in our stone and finish up with this round. Alright, so I'm a little bit more than 3/4 of the way, and that's fine. And all I'm going to do is just going to pop it in, and then I'm just going to try to hang on to that because this is going to be a fairly loose bezel until we get it completed. And so go ahead, continue what you were doing. There we go. And then I'm just going to make sure that when I bezel, as I continue this bezel, I go through that 15-0 hexagon that I first put on. Okay, now let's go ahead and switch over to our 15-0 rounds and go from there. Alright, now keep in mind the bezel is still fairly loose, so you're going to have to hold your stone in. If it pops out, not a big deal. Just go ahead and pop it right back in. And we're going to do the same thing what we did in the front. We're just going to be coming out of these 15-0 hexagons or Delicas, picking up a 15-0 round and going through the next 15-0 hexagon sticking out, just like this. There we go. Make sure it sits in the center. Alright. And go ahead and go all the way around, making sure that when you're done, you are coming out of that first 15-0 round that you started off with, okay? Meet me back here, and we'll get started on creating our little mountains and hills, okay? Alright, so if we look at these little mountains and these little hills, we'll see the pattern. So what we're going to do is now we're going to do a second round of the 15-0s, and during that period what we're going to do is we'll go ahead in 2 spots. We'll go ahead and add one 15-0 round, then we'll skip 2 spots. Then we'll go ahead and add one 15-0 to 1 spot, then skip 2 spots. And then we go back and repeat. So then we'll add one 15-0 to 2 spots, skip 2 spots, and then add one 15-0 round to one spot, and we'll see that when we go back to that first beginning of that first mountain, we skip 2 spots. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. There we go. Let's get a little closer. Things are still loose, and that's okay until we finish up the inner bezel and tighten the center. It will be loose, and that's to be expected. All right, so I am coming out of this 15-0 round. So I'm going to add we're going to add one 15-0 to 2 spots. So coming out of this 15-0 round, I'll go through the next 15-0 round sticking out. There we go. Help lie it down. Then I will go ahead, pick up a 15-0 round for the second, and go through the next 15-0 sticking out. Just like this. Make sure things sit correctly. There we go. Now we'll go ahead and we'll skip 2 spaces. So I'm just going to weave through that 15-0 hexagon and then the next 15-0 round. So that's 1 skip. And then I'll do that again. Go through the 15-0 hexagon and through the next 15-0 round, just like that, without adding any beads. There we go. I'll go through the 15-0 hexagon and the 15-0 round, just like that. So that will be 1 spot. And then 15-0 round and, 15-0 hexagon and 15-0 round go through without adding a bead. So that will be the second spot skip. Now we just need to add our final little hill. And the hill only has 1 15-0 added in 1 spot. And then we'll go and make our way to the beginning of that first mountain. So I'm going to go ahead, go through that, pick up the 15-0, going through the next sticking out 15-0. So that's the hill that we created. Now I just need to weave my way through without adding any beads to that very first mountain. There we go. So that's, I'll skip 2 spots to get there. That's 1. And that's 2. And I'm going to go ahead and go all the way up to that top of that mountain because there's that little notch there. And all we're going to do for this is add our final bead to the mountain, which will sit in between this little notch. We're going to do things a little different than a basic peyote stitch. So I'm coming out of here. I picked up the 15-0, which will sit here, and I'm going to go through the bead it's going to sit on top of. There we go. And if the thread gets a little tangled and it's not sitting correctly, just pick it up and it will lie correctly. And then I'm coming out of here. I'll go back through the bead I just added. I'm just going to use my nail to hold everything in place. And then I just go back down the mountain. Okay, and I don't have to add anything to the hill. So I'm just going to weave my way through until I get to the second mountain. Okay, so you're not adding any beads until you get to that second mountain and to the very top of it. So I'm just going to weave my way through. Alright, here's that first hill that we just added previously. So I'm just going to go past that because we don't have to add anything to that. There we go. Now we're past that little hill. I just need to make my way to that second mountain, which will be coming up. So I'm just gonna go ahead and keep going. Not adding any beads. All right, so now I'm at that mountain, but I want to get to the top where that little notch is. So I'm going to go ahead and weave my way through till I get to the top. I'm going to add that final bead for the mountain, the second mountain. Oops. All right, so I'm going to add a bead that's going to sit on top of here, and just like the other mountain, instead of going across like a typical peyote stitch, I'm going to weave through. So I picked up a 15-0 that's going to sit in this notch. I'm going to weave through to that 15-0 that's going to sit underneath the bead I just picked up. Make sure things sit correctly. I then go through the bead I just added. There we go. And then I go down the mountain. There we go. There we go. So we finished the embellishment of the back. And the nice thing is as we were going through, we reinforced all the back here. So now let's go ahead, switch over to our front and get started with the front. So when you're looking at the front, the key thing is we're going to do exactly what we did on the back, but we need to mirror that image in the front. So we need to make sure we're aligning correctly. So right now, I am coming out of this 15-0 here. And when I look at it from the opposite side, I have just the tail end of this mountain here, the first mountain. So I will add one bead to one spot, then I'll skip, start the hill, then start this mountain, then start this hill, come back over here, and then get started finishing up that first mountain. So it's going to be a little different, but you should be able to just, if you're ever in doubt, just flip it over and you're going to do exactly what you did on this side. So if you skipped a spot over here, you skip a spot over here, okay? So as we look at this, I'm going to go ahead. In this case, since over here I have one bead I need to add over here to mirror what I did, I'm going to go ahead and pick up one 15-0, go through the next 15-0, and then I skip 2 spots. And, you know, feel free to go back and check to make sure you're doing things correctly. So here, I skipped 2 spots in the back. I'm going to skip 2 spots in the front. All right. Spot that I'm skipping. 2 spots I'm skipping. And if I should check to make sure, I should be beginning my hill. There we go. So yep, that matches up with what I'm doing. So now I know. All right, so I'm going to pick up one 15-0 and go through the next 15-0 sticking out, just like this. And I've created the first hill on the front. Then I'll go ahead and start weaving past 2 spaces so I can get started on the second mountain. There we go. So that's 1 space. There we go. And that's 2 spaces. Again, things are a little loose right now still. There we go. Now for the mountain, we go ahead and add a bead in 2 spots. So let's go ahead and do that. Here's 1. Here's 2. Okay, so we started our second mountain. Now we skip 2 spaces and we'll get started on our second hill. So that's 1 space. And again, this is exactly what we did in the back. We just started at a different spot. There we go, that's 1 space. There we go, that will be 2 spaces. And then we'll create our second hill. And then finish up our first mountain. Alright, so for the hill, we pick up 1. We go through the next sticking out. There we go. And then we go through and skip 2 spaces. So that's 1. And that's 2. And we should have 1 space so we can finish our first mountain. Because we connected just the 1 bead in the 1 space because of where we started our thread. Okay, and because these are 15-0s and they do, I didn't want to make it too crowded with the thread. Instead of weaving, it just made it simpler just to start off where we were. All right, so here's our final bead to add on. Well, not our final, but it is our second bead for that mountain. All right. Now, so go ahead, we're going to put on our final beads for the 2 mountains, this mountain and this mountain. Because my thread is going in this direction, I'm going to go to the second mountain. Since my thread is going in this direction, I'm going to go to the second mountain, put on that bead, and then make my way back to the first mountain and put on that final bead there. Okay, so I'm just weaving through. I'm not adding any beads. I'm going to go to the top of the second mountain. There we go. And the nice thing about this stitch is as we're going through everything, we're reinforcing. So then all we need to do after this, before we put on our final embellishment, is to reinforce the spine here, which will help tighten everything. Because you'll notice it's still fairly loose. And that's okay. Do 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 do. Again, I'm just weaving through. I just went past that first hill, so now I'm making my way to the second mountain here. There we go. So I'm making my way to the top of the second mountain, and there's that little notch, just like the other side. So I'm coming out of here. Instead of doing my basic peyote stitch, I will pick up a 15-0 to sit in this little notch, but I'm going to go through the bead it's going to sit on top of. And if things don't sit correctly, just do a little pull so you can realign it. There we go. And then go back through that bead we just added. There we go. And then go down the mountain. Now we just have to weave all the way through without adding anything till we get to that first mountain again, and then we can add the final bead there. There we go. There we go. So I'm not adding anything. I'm just going ahead and weaving around. Okay. I'm coming up to that second hill. I just go right past it, weave through so I can reinforce. And then weave back down and make my way to that first mountain. There we go. I'm just going to make my way to the top of that first mountain. I have this little notch here. We're going to add our bead. Alright, so I'm coming out of here. I have my little notch. And so I picked up a 15-0. And instead of going across, I'm going to go through the bead it's going to sit on top of. There we go. Then I go through the bead I just added, just like this. And then I'm going to go right back down. There we go. There. So now we finish the embellishment for the front and the back. Whoops, the front and the back. Let's back up so we can see a little bit. Now what we're going to do is we're going to reinforce our front. And since my tail is a little shorter than my front, I'm going to go ahead and switch over to my tail and use that to reinforce it, so when I'm done with it, after some of my embellishments, I'll go ahead and end it. I will keep it on so I can use it as a guide later on, but after I'm done using it as a guide, I can then get rid of it. Alright, so meet me back here and we'll get started on reinforcing. Alright, now for the reinforcement. So I'm coming out of this 11-0 Delica. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the 11-0 Delica sitting next to it in the opposite direction, making sure my thread didn't catch on anything. Then back through that same 11-0 Delica, and then up the very center. And then through another 11-0 Delica where there's one side by side, and repeat. So I'll go back through in the opposite direction, and then through the 11-0 Delica I was first coming out of. This creates a little hog and tightens things up, and then I'm going to go through the 11-0 Delica by itself. And keep doing that until you go all the way around. Alright, use your other thread as a guide so you know when you've made a complete rotation. Meet me back here and we'll get started with our stitch in the ditch. Alright, so now we're going to do our stitch in the ditch, and all we're going to do is, like for example, I'm coming out of this very center 11-0 Delica in the spine. I'm going to pick up 11-0 Delica. It's going to sit in between these two 11-0 Delicas as I go through the next 11-0 Delica. So I'm going to go ahead, do that, and then go through here, just like that. And voila. And I'm going to do that all the way around. Once I've done that, I'm going to reinforce everything. And I'm just going to use my tail to help gauge to make sure I go all the way around instead of having to count every single one. So it's up to you. And go ahead, go all the way around, and then go around a second time. And then meet me back here and we'll add our fire polish. Alright, so now we're ready to put on our fire polish, and I'm using two colors. So what I'm going to do is wherever there's a mountain or a hill, I'm going to be using color A. And wherever there's just the spaces, I'm going to be using color B. So color A for me is going to be the Sunset Maple, and color B is going to be the Siam AB. Alright, so my first spot, since I'm right here at the end of at the end of a mountain, I'm going to go ahead and put on color A. There we go. Then, because I have 2 spaces, the next 2 spaces are going to be color B. There we go. Since the next space is going to be a hill, that will be color A. And then I have 2 spaces, so that will be color B. And then I have the mountain, so that will be color A for the next 2 spaces. Oops. Alright, and then the next 2 spaces are for spaces, so that will be color B. Oops. You fix this. There we go. And if you notice here, my fire polish, even though they're both 2mm, they're slightly different sizes. One's just a standard 2mm fire polish, and the other is a 2 true. And the 2 trues tend to be cut a little differently, so they are a little smaller. But both work. And I find that if you can use like an intermix, it lays fine. So whatever you prefer to use, just so you know, these are slightly different sizes. All right, and then I go over here and I got the hill again. So I'm going to go ahead and do color A. Then I got 2 spaces that will be for color B, because they're in front of 2 spaces where I had skipped. No mountain, no hill. And then I have 1 space left for that other mountain, so I'm going to go ahead and go back to color A. Alright, so with my tail thread, I weaved in and out all the way around, so I can go ahead and end this. For on my front thread, I haven't weaved anything or anything like that, so what I'm going to do with this thread is I'm going to reinforce everything. Okay, go all the way around a second time, then I'm going to add 3 to 4 half knots. So just a reminder, you don't want to ever end your threads unless you weave in and out the direction several times, or if you put a couple of half knots, 3 or 4 half knots. Alright, so that's how, so we're done with this section, so then we're just going to get started on the next section. Alright, so now we are going to connect our 18 by 13 fancy stone with our SS47. And the way to do that is I'm coming out of the very center fire polish, okay, where you are at your width, so it'll be the very center of this mountain here. I'm going to connect it with the center of one of these hills, okay, and so I'm going to pick up 11-0 Delica, then I'm going to pick up a 2mm fire polish, then I'll pick up another 11-0 Delica. I'm coming out of this side of the fire polish, so when I go through this fire polish, I'm going to go through on the opposite side. And what we're going to do is we're just going to create a little X as we do this. Then I will pick up another 11-0 Delica, and I'll go through the fire polish. And then I'll pick up another 11 Delica and go through the opposite side of this fire polish. And what this will do is this will create a little X to connect our two pieces together. Just like that. And then go ahead and reinforce that. Since this is a connection piece, I would make sure that I reinforce it at least 3 to 4 times. Then weave your way to the top of this of the SS47, so you're on the opposite side of the hill coming out of this fire polish here, and meet me back here and we'll do the next step. Alright, so now we're ready to create the connection that will connect to the chain of the necklace. So first we're going to create the actual connection piece, and this is just going to be a basic right angle weave that's going to involve this 2mm fire polish, 2 11 Delicas and color B here. And that color is, this is Silverline Autumn Spice Durcoat Delicas. It's a beautiful color. And then I'm going to add 1 11 Delica. That's going to be our Durcoat galvanized yellow gold that we've used around the bezels. Then we're going to pick up 2 more 11 Delicas in color B and go through that 2mm fire polish. And we're just going to create our circle, our right angle weave. So I'm going to go ahead and go back up. There we go. And then I'm going to go ahead and reinforce. There we go. And then I'm going to go back down. And then through again. So go ahead, that was our first reinforcement. Go ahead and reinforce this at least 1 or 2 more times, and then meet me back here, and we'll be coming out of this 11 Delica that's gold. Right, we're going to connect our connector to the actual chain. So to do that, we're going to create a right angle weave first with a pearl, and then we're going to embellish around the pearl. So I'm going through the top of the right angle weave here and coming out of this 11 Delica color A. I pick up 2 more 11 Delicas. I pick up a 4mm pearl, and I'm using antique brass. Then 2 more 11 Delicas color B. There we go. Then I go through this 11 Delica again, right here, and that's our right angle weave. Just like that. Then we go through the 2 11 Delicas again. There we go. I only went through the one, so I got to go through the second. There we go. Now you'll pick up 1 11 Delica color A, then 2 11 Delicas color B, then 1 11 Delica color A, then 2 more 11 Delicas color B, and then 11 Delica color A. And then go through the 2 11 Delicas on the opposite side of the pearl. There we go. And then back through that 11 Delica that connects to our connector. Okay, go ahead and go around this 3 to 4 times and make sure that in between your going halfway across the pearl as well. Meet me back here, and what you want to do is make sure you're coming out of either this 11-0 Delica or this 11-0 Delica, and we'll get started on our chain. Hi everyone. If you haven't noticed, you can tell that I've made some changes to the colors of the stones, and I made a few changes. The reason why is the one that I started with in the video, I was making it as a gift and I needed to wrap that up quickly, and I'm very slow and still learning the ropes of doing these videos. And so I had to concentrate on that as a gift first, but I'm coming back to finish this up with you. And I thought this would be the perfect opportunity to talk to you about alternatives to Swarovski stones. We have all heard that Swarovskis are going to be eliminating some of their loose stones and so forth in the future, and there will be a limit on which vendors can sell. It's uncertain where their future lays in loose stones. I have in the notes some alternatives such as Precocious, and if I'm mispronouncing it, I apologize. Yeah, I'll have to learn how to pronounce it. I'll figure that out. And then the other one is Potomac Beads, and they have their own set of crystals. And I thought I'd show you one of the alternatives. So I've used both Precocious and Potomac crystals, which is why I'm recommending them. This is right here, this is just your typical Swarovski's Rivoli. And this one here is a Potomac. Now it's very, very good quality, and they're a great alternative. They're also a little more affordable, as well as the Precocious. I'm mispronouncing it, I know, I apologize. Stones in comparison to Swarovski's. My only thing here about the Potomac, and these are just minor, is if you were to look at these a little closer, you can see just some slight imperfections around the edges. And this one, the back is fairly good, but I have seen where there's some slight imperfections in the back as well on occasion. Again, what I tend to do is I use the nail polish in the back just to help protect the stone and so forth, and then I don't have a problem with it. So, and I love to bezel my stones anyway, so you don't see those imperfections at all. So it doesn't have an impact on your finished piece. So, and you know, they have some, the thing is they also don't have as many colors as Swarovski's. If Swarovski's does continue, it sounds like they'll definitely be limiting their color selection as well. And so either way, there are other options out there, and when more I become aware of those, I'll definitely share that with you guys going forward. But I just wanted to show you have alternatives to Swarovski's that are just as good a quality with the finished product, and you know, you don't have to feel like you're substituting something of to make it look less of a high quality product. In fact, I bought the stones here, the Potomac stones, long before I had even heard of Swarovski's discontinue, just because I was having trouble searching colors that I wanted in Swarovski's because of COVID anyways. And so I was looking around and I came across these, and they're just gorgeous. They really truly are. And I've used Precocious stones in the past for years, and you know, I would love for Swarovski's not to have these problems so they can continue their loose stones. It's just what it is at the moment, which is why we should all encourage, you know, the younger generation to, you know, share the love of our beading, you know, and encourage young new designers and artists that, you know, they could have some wonderful outlets on here and so forth. But so let's go ahead and get started and finishing this project. So a couple of things to note before we continue. I also made a few changes to the design, which didn't have an impact on the design other than the look. Here on the bottom, instead of doing 2mm fire polish, I did 2mm pearls. And on the top, I also did that as well. The top stone, the difference is that in addition to the 2mm pearls, I also only added the 2mm pearls at where you have the little hills and the little mountains. The rest I surrounded with Delicas. Other than that, it's the exact same design. As I was starting to put this together, I realized this is a little bit more different than my original design. For a couple of reasons beyond just substituting the pearls for the fire polish. In this particular case, again, because I like to make things for people, I'm making this for somebody in particular of mine, and I'm doing this a little different than I did with the original design. And just to explain what I'm doing differently, and I'm going to go ahead, instead of showing you how to do this on this particular chain for the necklace, I am going to make a dummy chain that is based on the original design to make things a little bit easier. But just to explain the differences is that just like with the bracelet, the chain is the Delicas and the loops are the same color. And in this particular case, I am alternating them. And also in the original design, what we had was just pretend that these 2mm pearls are fire polish. We had two colors that we were using and alternating. We're doing that in the spine. The difference is in the loop, we're doing the same color. And that gets a little confusing. So just to simplify things so it's consistent with the bracelet and the original necklace, I am going to make a dummy chain to show you, and then I'm going to use that dummy chain to also show you how to add the clasp. So I apologize for any confusion. I was going to initially show you on here, but once I started going, I realized, yeah, I adapted a few extra changes that again, just because I'm making this for somebody else, I had that in mind. So this is going to be a gift for somebody. So just keep that in mind. If you're interested in that, that's the changes is the 2mm pearls, and that I'm also alternating the Delicas and the loops. Okay? All right. Just to kind of mimic where we're connecting our chain here for the dummy chain is that I have this 11/0 Delica, and this 11/0 Delica corresponds with over here. So you see how we have surrounding our 4mm pearl, we have a total of 12 Delicas. We have 1 silver, 2 gold, 1 silver, 2 gold, 1 silver, 2 gold, 1 silver, 2 gold. And then if you, right here is the silver, 2 gold, and then the silver over here again. So we have our chain connected to, on the very side, silver one. And so I have that here mimicked as well. So that way we can do a dummy chain. So I'm just going to put this off to the side. Alright, so you're coming out of that 11/0 Delica. And what you're going to do is you're going to pick up your 4mm pearl, your 2mm fire polish, color 8, and then your 4mm pearl. And you just go ahead and you're going to slide that down. Then we're going to do our loop, and that's going to be first 5 11/0 Delicas. Alright, then you're going to pick up a 2mm fire polish, and then again 5 11/0 Delicas. And we're just going to call this part of the chain the spine. So then the Delicas with the fire polish will be the loop. So then what you want to do in this particular case, because we're starting off on our chain, we're going to go back through that 11-0 Delica. And again, that 11-0 Delica is this Delica here, okay? And we're going to go through that 11-0 Delica, and then we'll go up the spine. There we go. I'm going to have my loop facing this way, just because. And then I'm just going to go back up through the spine. Just like that. And then I'm going to go ahead and reinforce the loop, going through that 11-0 Delica again, and then up through the spine. Now I'm just going to go through that spine one last time. Now I'm going to add to the spine. So I'm picking up a 2mm fire polish. I'm picking up a 4mm pearl. And the 2mm fire polish I'm picking up is going to be color B. Just a refresher. So here in the spine I have color A, then I have color B in the loop. Here for the next color in the spine, I will have color B. So I'm going to now do the loop, which will now have color A for the fire polish. So I'm picking up 5 11-0 Delicas, color A in the 2mm fire polish. In this case, it'll be purple. Then 5 more 11-0 Delicas. And then I go through that 4mm pearl that's at the top of the last segment of the spine. So here's the section we just added. I'm going to go through this one right here. And then back through the rest of the spine. There we go. And I do make sure, just so things lay correctly, I go through the spine and the loop separately. I don't combine them. And now I'll reinforce that loop. And then back through the spine to go ahead and add the next segment of the spine. So, alright, so let's just take a look to see where we're at. So I have the purple, the red. So in this case, the neck, I'll go back to the purple. So I'm picking up my 2mm fire polish, 4mm pearl. I'm sliding that down because that's part of the spine. Then I'm going to pick up 5 11-0 Delicas. And because my spine here, I'm doing purple, I'm going to go ahead and do red in the loop. And then I'm going to go ahead, slide that down. And then I'm going to go through that 4mm pearl from the previous segment and then up the spine. There we go. Which will include that 2mm fire polish and 4mm pearl. I'm going to go ahead, slide that through. And the loops always sit on top of the previous loop. Then I'll go ahead, reinforce that. There we go. There. All right. And then you want to do a total of, so you have a total of 15 loops. And then go ahead, do the exact same thing on the other side. And then meet me back here and we'll go ahead and continue on the chain. Alright, so as we continue on the chain, just imagine that I've done a total of 15 here. This is my little dummy chain. What you want to do is, the only difference is that you're going to skip doing the loops. And the reason why that is you want it to sit nicely around the neck. And this, everyone's neck is a little different, and it just helps with those that have more of a round shoulder to neck. All right, so what you want to do is you're going to continue the combination of the spine that you're currently doing. So here I have purple. I'm going to go ahead and pick up the red, and then I'll do a 4mm pearl, slide that down, and again we're just skipping the loops now. So I have red here. I'm going to pick up purple for the fire polish, and then I'm going to pick up a 4mm pearl, and then I just keep repeating that and alternating the fire polishes back and forth until I get to the length that I want. And you want to do this on both sides. So go ahead and do that. Meet us back here and I will show you how to add the chain.
That's magicspoon.com/majority report. Use the code majority report.
Alright, so now we just need to add the component to add our clasp. And just a reminder, you want 15 loops and then on both sides, and then you want this part here to the length that you want. Once you get to the length that you want on both sides, because it does make it easier to measure, is what you want to do is you want to pick up 9 11/0 Delicas. Slide those Delicas down. Now, if you're using a split ring, I do recommend that you put the clasp on. If you're using a split ring, especially if you're not using a midnight clasp. If you're using a split ring, I would recommend putting the clasp on now. It's a little bit easier. It'll make your life a lot less headache. If you're using a jump ring, it doesn't make that big of a difference. It's up to you. I, as a general rule, just whenever I'm doing my projects, I just automatically put the jump ring and the clasp on right away, and the split ring and the clasp on right away. And so what I like to do is just imagine if you have a clasp attached, since this is just a dummy, just imagine there's a clasp attached to my split ring. I'm going to attach the split ring and the clasp on. And I'm just going to slide it down so it sits on top of the Delicas. And then I'm going to go through that very first Delica that we put on. And I'm going to go as far as I can down the spine. And I'm going to try to reach that second loop. So I'm going to want to be coming out of a 4mm pearl when I do that. Not quite there yet, so I need to go through a couple of more until I get to that second loop, the beginning of the second loop right here. And then what I like to do is I like to go through that second loop from the last, I should say. There we go. because you want to go through this part of the chain at least 4 times. Alright, so what I'll do is I'll do like a little half knot in the loop. If possible, try to have all your half knots in the loops. You know, you don't have to if you can't, but it does make life a little easier to go ahead and do that. There we go. And this is gonna, there we go. I didn't want it to twist on me and cause a problem. And then you just go through, make sure you're not skipping any beads. That's so important. And then you make your way back up, and at this point you're just going to go right up the spine. Oh, looks like I lost a little bit of light. I gotta replace the battery there. Alright, so we're just gonna go ahead and finish here because we're almost done. And then what you want to do is when you go back up, go through that very first 11-0 Delica, because that first 11-0 Delica you're going to be going in and out of, okay? So just think of that as part of your spine. Now that we're through that first 11-0 Delica, I'm going to go through 2 more 11-0 Delicas. I'm going to pick up an 11-0 Delica, and I'm going to use silver because I like to use contrasting colors whenever possible. Then I'm going to go through 2 more 11-0 Delicas, just so that my clasp and jump ring or split ring doesn't get caught up. I'm just going to put it on the opposite side so it remains loose in the loop that we're creating. Then I'm going to pick up 11-0 Delica, go through 2 more 11-0 Delicas. There we go. Then I am going to pick up another 11-0 Delica, go through 2 more 11-0 Delicas. And then I'm going to go back through that 11-0 Delica, which is part of the spine. And then you're just going to go all the way down if possible. If you can't, do a couple of half knots, then go back up and through all these beads, the loop for your clasp, at least 1 more time. I recommend if you can, do it 2 more times. And then when you're done, do a couple of half knots, and then you can end your project and do the same thing on the opposite side. And and this is a project, most likely with the chain, you're going to have to add the thread at some point. If you do need to add any thread, try to do it somewhere within the loops, and because it's easier to do the half knots there. You don't have to, it's not the end of the world, but it does make your life a little bit easier. Thank you guys, I really appreciate it. If you enjoy these videos, please like and subscribe. I hope you look forward to the next projects. I am going to be making another Cassandra bracelet. I'm still working out the kinks in the design. And then we also have, I'm going to be trying to do a video here of the New Year's Balls necklace. I think you guys are going to love it. I'm really, just having a assignment to do something really inspires me to come up with some really fun ideas. So take care, everybody. I really appreciate you guys, and thank you so much. And just take care and stay healthy. Bye-bye.